Hey everybody, it's me, Matthew Cody Lang. My pronouns are they, them. This is, oh God, what are you watching? And I have a special guest today. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Matthew Meyers, and I am Tom Hiddleston's number one fan, according to me.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people actually, probably too. Thank you for coming. Tell everybody like what you do in the city. Who are you and what have you done?
Well, if I tell you who I am, it's not that I'll have to kill you, it's that
Please
I'll have
do.
to make sure you're not breathing. I know,
Okay.
well, here's the thing.
I'm over it.
To answer the question,
Yeah.
I'm a performer.
I know we were talking about two specific movies today, and those movies are both by Peter Jackson. But they are not the Lord of the Rings movies. They are some of the maybe lesser known of his works, which are Meet the Feebles, which Matthew chose, and I chose Heavenly Creatures, which I talked about on my friend Sanket's podcast. So check that out if you haven't seen that. But I'm excited to actually speak with someone today about this because I love this fucking movie. Before we get into that, what are some of your favorite movies? What kind of things do you usually like?
So, as far as movies, I am somebody who loves colors. So the poppy colors, the poppier the colors are, the
Yeah.
better. I also like, I don't know how to describe it, but I guess I'll just go with one of my favorite directors. I like Tim Burton, and I'll
Yeah.
explain why. Nightmare Before Christmas is my favorite movie. It shaped me in more than just the, oh, you grew up to go shop at Hot Topic. Well, yes, but more. It's a picture for him. It's the cinematography. Listen, sometimes his movies, they don't make no kind of sense, but
You say
wow,
that
they look
about most
beautiful.
people. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was always drawn to that. Maybe some abstract imagery, certainly with Star Wars and science fiction stuff
Mm-hmm.
and fantasy.
And you also love horror.
Yes, I
Yeah.
love horror.
Yeah.
So
It's all
that
that
one of my
whole
other,
mixture of things that you like all into one kind of thing.
it's literally everything but rom-coms.
Well, that's it's kind of interesting that you do bring up Tim Burton because okay, somewhat, even though Peter Jackson also has his like craziness. Did Heavenly Creatures kind of give you a vibe of like him having made something similar, especially with like the big clay things, the darkness? I mean, it gets a little heavier towards the end, but there is that kind of slight wackiness to reality that Peter Jackson did in his earlier work, and then kind of Tim Burton. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of a similar like.
I would, you're onto something. I would agree. It felt almost Big Fish-esque.
Yes, I can see that. Yeah, we will be starting with Heavenly Creatures, which oh my god, I have no stats with me right now. It came out in like 1994, 95, 96, within that range.
The 90s.
Yeah, so it was a 90s movie. This is before Peter Jackson became the giant sensation that was with everyone's favorite film, The Frighteners. So, Heavenly Creatures has Kate Winslet in her first starring role and Melanie Linsky. Kate Winslet being from The Reader, Holy Smoke, and Titanic. And what's her name? I just said her name a second ago. Melanie Linsky. I have seen her in some things. Could I name a lot of them? No, but I have seen her. But this is a true story that happened in New Zealand in the 50s, I believe, and around Christchurch. And it follows two schoolgirls and their relationship as it's starting as like really cute friendship, having a good old time, and then that becoming more intense with their imagination and all kinds of stuff, and that leads to a crime. What did you think of this? What was your how was your experience?
I gotta tell you, it was a little profound. I was high,
As you should be.
and
Currently am.
same. I have to say it was way more cerebral than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Not to say that I thought it was going to be like some dumbed down cartoon or anything like that,
But
but it it was really like I had a lot of thoughts.
Yeah,
and I was like,
especially
taking
with you going in with Meet the Feebles and go and all these like kind of out there things where like I think his most furthest away from what he was like originally doing would be like Lord of the Rings being a separate kind of thing in its way.
Right.
But like and then knowing goofy shit that he does. And then you come to this, which is like such a weird shift for him. I thought was very cool, but I think that was his first like big thing that made a splash. So, but continue.
Well, it makes sense that after watching it, it makes sense that he did it.
Yeah.
But I agree. It's definitely, this would probably be something isolated from certainly what people would know him for. And certainly if like I was developing a film and I wanted a director, I would hire Peter Jackson for so many other things than something like this.
Yeah, a true crime story.
But it worked.
Yeah.
A true crime story.
Yeah.
But it was this fantasy element that worked.
Yes. And it's so interesting to see that. And when, and the filmmaking, I think also kind of, it's so interesting how it goes, it changes in tone as it goes along. Like the very beginning, it's very playful and like zooming in on them and it's all happy. And then as it goes along, like you start noticing that like the veil is kind of being taken off and it gets a little bit more intense and things start moving into like a horror kind of like feel and also just like intense drama because you start to see that kind of illusion that these girls had is starting to break. Like the fun stuff was at the beginning and then now it's starting to show its teeth in a way that I don't think clearly they were not expecting and did not know how to handle. I guess at the beginning there's a really cool thing where it introduces the town of like Christchurch and it's very like old-fashioned 50s like archival footage and it kind of sets you up with that and then you hear it start to fade away into just screaming and it's like this beautiful thing is all gay with color blah 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 and then all of a sudden you just hear screaming and it's like a POV of like running through the woods and then you see them bloody and that's from the end of the film and you're like oh shit what's gonna happen. So what was your like feeling of that? Did you expect it to be, did you read anything about it before going into it?
I thought I was watching the wrong film.
Oh yeah.
At first, with the like archival fucking welcome to Christchurch.
Yeah.
Here we have all this stuff. No, so I thought I was watching the wrong movie, and then the running happens. While it is disturbing, I was like relieved because okay, I'm watching the right movie.
I'm not watching a documentary on New Zealand. So it starts with the screaming and then it goes to like a title screen basically that tells you that like a lot of the information was from Pauline's journal, who is played by Melanie Linsky, where it's like a lot of these are and poems and dialogue is like from her journal entries. So to know that this is like okay, so they found like deep kind of connections and info that were very helpful and girl, why did you not fucking hide your diary? but it's a true story, so look,
it is. I was blown away with that. I was
yes.
Okay, we're in for it.
Oh Christ. Church. The girls meet and they become friends.
Yes.
Because Pauline doesn't really have any, she's antisocial, and then they get paired together in art class and I
love that scene.
I need to say I thought I'd just pop her on a rock. I was like that's my New Zealand accent. Pauline, who lives in like a boarding house with her family, she meets Juliet, who has her family's very successful. The father is like a beloved like professor at like the local college. The mom is a whore. I don't know what is she. She smokes cigarettes and she plays tennis. I love her.
Yeah, she's a therapist, a sex therapist, or a couples therapist.
I've never seen this movie. No, I'm just kidding. These girls, they end up finding out they have the same like idols and all these artists that they love so much. When I watched this movie, the first time I ever saw it was on Logo, and I was in high school, and I was like, ooh, a lesbian Kate Winslet movie? I used to be obsessed with Kate Winslet, like obsessed. I even did a monologue about it in an acting school. This was on Logo, and was excited for lesbian Kate Winslet, and it was her first movie, and I was like, I've never fucking seen this. And then it ended, and this is me, high school me, going through my, like, crisis of being gay in high school, and I just came out and everything. So at the end where I'm like, oh, look, they love each other, it's great. And then they do what they did at the end, and I was like, oh my God, okay.
The roller coaster.
Yeah, and just like, especially like, have you been in a relationship that is very intense? I don't even know why I'm asking you this. How many relationships have you been in that are very intense?
The ones that I was allowed to call myself the boyfriend, or the ones I'm not? What one are we counting?
Oh God, it's all it all hurts so badly.
I know.
But that's the thing though. It's like that's what I found was interesting. Where it's like these two girls are really great and they love each other, and their family just doesn't want them to be with each other as they start seeing their relationships intensifying. But I remember being in high school and having this deep fucking love for like my best friend and stuff like that. And then like I saw this movie and I was like, well, at least I'm not them. But I was still like, but I've thought about it. So they create this world called the Fourth World, where when you die, you go end up with a bunch of artists and like musicians and singers, actors, and Orson Welles is in there, which there's that scene where he's like chasing them down like from the movie screen. Love that.
From that point on, the girls are they're close. Pauline is coming out of her shell. They also make names for themselves. They start making characters.
Princess Deborah.
Deborah is
and
one,
Charles.
and
Their relationship intensifying to this thing where like reality and just fiction kind of blur, which kind of
the lines are blurred,
and they are stuck in this like middle ground of not really knowing what's right, what's real, what's not, and which reminds me of that Slender Man case, which is very fucking similar to like this, where they like went so fucking overboard. And yeah,
thank you for saying that, because I was going to bring that up. I was going to bring up that this is not. There have been other crimes of this nature, where it's such a disconnect from reality, and then that's kind of where, and it's children, it's teenagers,
and they're both escaping like pretty big things in their lives, where like Juliet's family is constantly leaving her. She was sick forever, like with her lungs, and has to move around all the time, and now and then she gets like tuberculosis basically, and like coughing up blood, and the family's like, we're going to go on vacation, or we're gonna go to the moon. They like leave her, and then they're like, it's okay, you're fine, right? And she's like, and like
terrible.
Yeah, horrible. And then Melanie Linsky is just, what is her deal? She's she's just mad.
Well, I think
the 50s.
It's the 50s. They're a working class family. I think that she's, from my perspective of it, I think that she's also probably a little more hormonal than Juliet. I think Juliet has that fun thing of like, I can put on a mask of being very, very mature.
Yes.
And intelligent, and rightfully so.
She's like a precocious little child. Yeah.
There's a sense of naiveness that works for her in her favor that Pauline could never be given.
Yeah, well, Juliet has the confidence because her family's also rich as shit. So she has like this, like, she's constantly like, I'm beautiful, people love me, it's great, I'm funny, I'm smart as shit. And it's like this whole thing, and I think she's kind of made to grow up like faster in a way, so she kind of it's interesting, like her like hanging out with Pauline and finally having more of a childlike friendship, which I think she's mostly been like tossed around the business people and, you know, all their smart intellectual friends, and I feel like she maybe had to compete, and then finally found this like childlike stuff that she wasn't able to like get out. Of course, I don't know these girls in real life. This is stuff we didn't see, but that's how their relationship intensified, is because they both had that connection of like, they both love fantasy, and they were like the weird girls that are, you know, doing the Yu-Gi-Oh runs or whatever down the road, or acting like dinosaurs. You know those kids. I was that kid.
I was one of them.
Yeah, y'all remember me? No.
we've established that these girls now have a separate, totally out there reality on their own, and their relationship is intensifying by leaps and bounds.
Oh yeah,
It frightens their parents. A lot of dramatic shit happens. Juliet gets sick again, and she's left for weeks or years.
Yeah, in this like hospital, and Pauline can't
TV
visit.
ward.
And they decide to write to each other as their characters that they made up for their stories. Yeah, so they have like this fun little game they play, and that kind of keeps them connected. So when they meet up again, it's like nothing ever happened. And
can we talk about the pedophile? So one is in the TB ward, and they can't see each other. So now Pauline is spending more time at home, and she kind of connects with this boarder, and the boarder, who is a young man.
Yeah, he's not a teenager. She's like 14, 15. I think they were around that age.
Yeah, so I say that not because it makes it right. I say it because it was this sort of like, ooh, you can't tell, which is almost worse.
Yeah.
And they take it out on her.
Yes, they do.
They throw him out.
Yeah, he gets kicked to the side, but they of course freak out on her because they now think she's like some loosey-goosey lady.
Jezebel.
Yeah, exactly. So which is something that she was like not into. She didn't want to do this. She started kind of like, which is a really great scene where he's doing his thing to her, and she's like kind of grossed out and uncomfortable, and she just kind of disappears into her fantasy world with Juliet, and they're dancing around with their clay figures of their characters they created. A clay Mario Lanza's in the corner like la, 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 la. And I was
right.
And so she kind of like goes to that world just to escape the reality. So then she like wakes up, and that's what happened, and then it starts to go from there as the parents get really pissed at her. But I think that also kind of throws off the lesbian vibes they were getting from her, because she's like, oh, well, they get back together and hang out, and then they want to their parents get annoyed because they're all up on each other, and they see them in the bathtub together and stuff like that, and they're like, y'all are too close. And they try to separate them. Doesn't go well. Juliet finds out she is going to go to Africa with one of her aunts, I guess, for her lungs, so she can like be in a climate that's appropriate. And so the two girls are gonna be separated, and Pauline is pissed, devastated, and she's like, I'll come with you, and the parents are like, no, you can't fucking go with these people, no. And especially because they're a little bit more liberal on the girls hanging out with each other. So the girls decide that they are going to get rid of what needs to be gotten rid of to make them together, which is Pauline's mother. I was like, mad at this mom being like, why are you keeping your kids from each other, blah, 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 you homophobe. But then also seeing her struggle in that time period of like, what do I do? People already look at us weird because we're poor and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I don't want this to be something that people get chatting around the neighborhood because, words carry.
Yes.
Like, kind of shit. And she like wants to do well for her daughter so much, and you see her like crying her eyes out, not knowing what to do, and it's upsetting. It's really upsetting. And there's the thing where they like end up saying like, okay, y'all get to hang out with each other like one last night before Juliet has to leave.
They kill the mom.
Oh, so yeah.
And no, I'm kidding. Well, I mean, you knew that from the beginning, but they lure the mother out into the like deep of the woods. You could tell that Juliet is very uncomfortable with this.
Yeah,
she's like,
she's kind of like second guessing.
I felt for her.
Well, yeah, when they're in the room like preparing, like there's the tension builds so like perfectly, because it starts in the house and you see her like she gets a piece of brick, like a big thing of brick, and wraps it in like stockings. And she has it in her bag, and there's like a moment where the mom's leaning in the oven trying to grab something, and you see her grab her bag, and you're like, are they gonna do it in the kitchen? And then they're just like, I brought you these. And I'm like, I know, just like Hansel and Gretel style. Which also would have been neat, but it wouldn't have probably succeeded because yeah. So in the room before they like go out and do stuff and go hang out for the day with the mom, because she's like, I'm gonna take them into town and treat them to like treats and have a nice little tea time. And then I know. And then in the bedroom, like Pauline's kind of like focused and just like, yep, we're just gonna get this taken care of, and that's her mom they're
like
killing.
Dead set with conviction. The soul is out of her eye. She's gone.
Juliet.
That was scary. And Juliet's just kind of frantically trying.
Pacing and kind of being like, well, your mother is a miserable woman, trying to like convince herself like, this is fine, we're doing this. She's a terrible person. We'll kill her. It's fine. Nothing's gonna go wrong from this. We're doing this. Yeah. And you just see her like kind of struggle and you're like, what are they both gonna do it? Is one of them gonna do it? What's happening? So then you hear that there's this like beautiful like moment where the day kind of slows down as they're going into the city and this music's playing and it's like boom 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 blum blum. I don't really know the song.
Actually, no, you weren't far off.
And then they start going deeper into the woods and you're like, okay, so they're getting away from everybody. And then Juliet pretends to drop like that little jewel from their like imagination.
Yeah,
and she's like, oh, what's that? And the mother goes to pick it up, and then Pauline comes up and just
starts her right in the head,
wailing on her head. And it's intercut with these scenes of them like being separated in like a dreamlike sequence where Juliet and her parents are on a boat and Pauline's like at the shore, like kind of at the port, and just being like, no. And it's like, and the parents are all happy and Juliet's crying, Pauline's crying, and it keeps going back and forth between that of like them being separated, and you're also hearing the mother like scream. So it's going from like this dreamlike thing to reality, and it's like really intense, horrific, like murder and both the girls end up taking turns doing that, and it ends up finishing off with them kind of being separated and Pauline sitting there just like wailing, crying. And did your ending have that one last where like covered in blood where she screams?
I think so.
Okay, because that's technically the unrated version for some reason. It's the DVDs I've had of this are just strange, and the versions I've seen are different, where when they're in the bathtub you can see like their tits basically in the water, and if you get
I didn't see that.
So this is something that they cut out even in the and they were like of age, I believe, when they did this movie, because I would know this because Kate Winslet did a credit card commercial where she's like, at 19 I went to prison for murder or something, and I was like, oh, Heavenly Creatures. So yeah. But they still, like, in the unrated DVD that I had, they still didn't have that, where you couldn't see them. And then they had there's a last image where Pauline lets out one big scream, and it's of her in reality just covered in blood, and it's like this panning shot going over, and she's like,
I did see this.
Yeah, so, and then it ends, and you get, like, titles of, like, they raided the place, said that they found her journals, and that's where they found out what happened. And the girls were not old enough to be tried as adults, so they ended up going to like a juvenile kind of school for several years, and they were to never be seen ever again with each other from that day forward.
That was the condition of their release.
And having seen their relationship and like how beautiful it started and just how dark it got, and just seeing like how tragic that was. Even, yes, they committed murder, but it was also like you could see them slowly just like kind of leaving reality, and for whatever reason, and committing this horrific fucking thing just because they wanted to be with each other. They thought this was like their life was going to be together. They were going to go write books and go have a fucking field day in Hollywood and shit. There is a thing that came out like after the movie, after a few years, they found Juliet. Juliet changed her name and became a famous horror writer. Her name is Anne Perry. She writes a lot of like vampire novels and stuff. And I know you don't want this out, but it's already out. Anne Perry. She gets pissed about this stuff too. But yeah, she changed her name, and then she's also denied that it was like a lesbian relationship. She was like, we were just young, blah blah blah. And sexuality is a spectrum, so of course, in kids practice and experiment and shit like that, so sure.
Right.
But also, considering it was such a traumatic event, maybe that also suppressed a bunch of other feelings, girl. So, and then Pauline ended up being like a school teacher and like lives on a farm or some shit. Yeah, she's like a farm woman.
A farmer.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was me holding the rake, because if you look up, there's a picture of her like, meh. So like holding a rake or something, and I'm just like, and it's so weird because I'm like, I want to see them meet each other again, and I feel like weird saying that, but I'm also like, just because I was so invested in the movie, and it's like something that would never happen, but also like I was just like,
I bet they reconnected. I have to believe.
I don't know, because what are they gonna go back to jail like from the 50s and like I don't know,
jail.
I can't imagine they would ever want to relive that, or maybe one of them still has feelings for the other. I don't know. But apparently they haven't spoken. Maybe some stuff has resurfaced, but it's a very intense film, and it was something I also I showed in my journalism class as a presentation.
Ooh.
Not the full film, but I showed them one of my favorite sequences is when it's a montage in the beginning when they're at their like peak happy, and she puts on a Mario Lanza song. It's the Donkey Serenade, and they're like dancing through the dancing through the house, and then you just see a montage of them hanging out like at school, being planes, rolling around, being girls and laughing and out. And then there's Peter Jackson's in that montage too, if you remember seeing him.
I believe I did.
The homeless man who walks by and Juliet kisses him. So
yeah.
I was like, oh yeah. So he threw himself in there, and that was great. And then that montage, I just love how it's shot. It's so playful and cute, and I love the song. And at that very end of that, you see them like kiss, and you're like, oh, so this has gone from friendship to maybe something else. And it's a quick like, where they're like laying naked in the fucking like woods together, and they're just like throwing their clothes all over the fucking woods. It's so cute, and you're like, oh great, they're having a good old time. And then they start kissing, and you're like, oh, something else.
Secret relationship.
Yeah. Did you know that they were going to be like a couple? Had you like seen anything about that?
No.
Okay.
I saw nothing. I've only heard about this film from reading a filmography list.
Yeah.
And then you bringing it up.
Yeah.
And so that's really all I knew. I kind of got the Leslie vibes, but I was like, I kind of went back to that. I don't know. They're young enough that this might just be experimental for them.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is going to be, grounded in reality forever for those two. I don't know if that's their truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Clearly their truth was to kill a person.
Yes. And to get famous in Hollywood. So out of the like Peter Jackson films, how would this like place in like, I guess the things that you've seen? Is there like certain ones that you prefer more, or compared to Meet the Feebles? How is what would you have to say?
When I started talking about Heavenly Creatures on this program, I said that it was cerebral, and that is where I would put it. I would put it with a absolutely more coherent idea, even because it is a true story. Yeah. Here's the thing: other films before The Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson, there weren't adaptations of anything. They were just his own idea, and his wife.
Oh, yeah.
They were a team. This very well could have been the first film he did where he did not write the story. Yeah. So I would say that it's definitely unique. I mean, I liked it. I would probably watch it again. Not, religiously, but it is a movie I enjoyed, and it is a movie I would show people. Yeah. Especially people who are like, Peter Jackson, he's Lord of the Rings. I'm like, well, no, he's not. I would show them this. I would probably recommend Dead Alive. Yeah. I'll always bring up Meet the Feebles, but I will not force people to watch that. It's free.
There's those movies that I have too where I'm like, I love them. I don't think anyone else does. Basketball.
I haven't even gotten.
Love it. What was your favorite moment, if you had to choose a moment that stuck out to you from the film? Like, what if it even like either from like an emotional standpoint or just from like the filmmaking in general?
Well, the thing I liked the most about it, and I would say that it would then be the sequences of the clay people.
Yeah, the fantasy world.
The concept of the fantasy world. Yeah. It was very H.P. Lovecraftian in that respect. Yeah. It reminded me of From Beyond. Now, I've never watched the movie, but I'm aware of the story and I'm aware of the plot of the movie.
See, I'm
From
not.
Beyond, well, then allow me to just give you the similarities. So what is similar is that the concept is there's this world beyond that nobody else can see but this select group of people. So From Beyond, it's manipulation of the pineal gland. So if you manipulate the pineal gland in your brain specifically, but not too specifically, the theory is that you can cure madness, craziness, schizophrenia, and the movie takes it to the 1980s whatever movie takes it to the level of sexual pleasure, and you can experience this high that's not meant for mortals. And so the concept of having that, but it's a physical door to another world.
Okay.
And so I thought, and I really liked and enjoyed that they brought that kind of concept of only the people, only the intelligent, only the ones with a specific wiring of the brain can see this world. But they did it in an innocent way. It wasn't sexual. Yeah. It was very, the world itself was pure.
It did get sexual. But
it got sexual.
But that was just part of their little story.
Well, I think that it was the world matched the mood, so it was kind of like puberty for them.
Yeah, and it was a scene that I actually talked about in the journalism class. This is 11th grade, Pendleton, South Carolina, and I was like, there is this lesbian sex scene in this movie that is beautiful, and my teacher's like, oh Lord, Miss Dyer. Sorry you had me as a student, but I have a little thing with them in bed, kissing and stuff. And I love how it goes. They're trying to just reenact how their characters would make love, and so they just are having these sexual things with each other, but as their characters. So it goes from their fantasy world, and it's you see these clay people fucking, and then it goes into the two of them just in bed together. And I feel like that was a thing that at least Peter Jackson was trying to put across, that it had kind of gone outside of the fantasy world and they were connected in a very deep way, which it was a sexual way, and just with the love they had for each other and stuff. And I liked how it went back and forth, where it wasn't just this raunchy thing. It was fantasy, and then them and kind of discovering that and breaking out of that fantasy world, which I thought was kind of cool. And I love that scene.
Yeah, I would say that the direction and the style of that concept of the fourth world, I think, was done beautifully, and I think the tone of it matched what was being said in the story.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I'm glad you watched that. And I have now seen Meet the Feebles, which is was this his first film, second film? Do you know specifically?
Either the second or third. Bad Taste is the first.
Okay, which I had seen Bad Taste. And that was something. Bad Taste is there's zombies and aliens. Basically, it's a whole bunch of shit going on.
Did you notice the alien is in the audience at one point?
No, of Meet the Feebles.
Yeah, they have the aliens sitting on the in the audience at one point. Oh
shit! Okay, that's so funny. I guess. Well, also I watched it on Tubi, and it looks like it's also filmed with I don't know, my computer the whole time. So if y'all want to watch it, it's on Tubi and on YouTube. But apparently YouTube has a remastered version. But yes, when did you first see this? And what happened?
It's a story.
Okay.
Indulge me. I'll make it quick.
Do it.
I have this habit of, as a kid, whenever you see fire, if you see fire for the first time, you're kind of you want to touch it. And some people, they either touch it or they try to get as close to it as possible without touching it.
Okay.
I like to edge things, not just sexually. So I don't like body horror. Famous examples, The Thing from the 80s, The Fly. My least favorite is called Slither. I'm sure some people have heard of it. It's revolting to me. But I don't know why though. I have this fascination with looking up body horror stuff. And so what happened was I looked up the term, and then on Wikipedia you could see a list of films. And so I saw a couple of films by Peter Jackson, and I was like, wait a minute, what? Wait, what? Lord of the Rings? What?
Horror?
What is this? So I had no idea. So Bad Taste, Meet the Feebles, and Dead Alive are all on this list. And so I watched Dead Alive, and I was like, oh, okay, this is weird and gross.
Yeah, it's really gross.
I watched, and then I said, all right, let's Meet the Feebles. And I looked. Wow. How do I describe Meet the Feebles?
I mean, there's a lot of shit you can say about this.
I saw the poster, I should say, and I was like, oh, it's like a parody of the Muppets.
Yeah.
Cool. Whatever, up my alley. Colorful, like I said earlier. Wow, and I did read that it was a musical. So I was like, this has got to be the campiest
everything I want.
Ever.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It is the Muppets if you wanted to see the sleazier side of show business. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So, but quick note before we go on with the plot. I watch this on my birthday every year.
Really?
Yeah,
That's amazing.
I have a couple of birthday traditions. Well, I watched it on my birthday for the first time randomly.
Yeah.
So I don't. It had such a weird, profound effect.
Well,
at midnight.
It's kind of like like an adult Chuck E. Cheese show that you get to see behind the scenes, and it's not pretty. So yes,
not at all.
Yeah,
not
it's fucking gross and offensive.
Very. So the show opens with this variety opening number. So you see these like crudely etched out puppets that are not as eye-pleasing as the Muppets.
The Fox especially looked like a bad like taxidermy experiment, and then they were like, I don't know, put some eyes on it, make it a puppet, and it's just like this like weird dead thing coming towards you. Like
It was a lot of that. So nothing is aesthetically pleasing, but the music is fun. Mm-hmm. They have the energy. They have the energy to match the opening of the Muppets show.
Yeah, and it's like Meet the Feebles. Like it kind of introduces you to the movie too. So yeah.
So everybody would. So I'm thinking, all right. So if it's a parody, they're going to show like a couple of like weird things. Yeah. I actually expected some sexual content and some drug use, but that's just like this much of the bizarreness of it. Yes. So it immediately then it's a rehearsal. You find out it's a rehearsal. They're this variety act that has been playing in theaters in undisclosed location. Is it Australia? Is it America? I don't know. Let's say New Zealand. So and mind you, this is not like they're puppets and then the people come out. No. It's like Muppets the movie where they're still the Muppet.
But you don't see a single human being in the movie. It's all puppet people. And they're puppet animals, basically, all kinds of different animals. And then there are a few where people are dressed in like big, like Barney-looking outfit thing, because there's a giant hippopotamus woman, and then a bulldog, and the walrus, and a few that are like just people in costumes, which I thought was really cool. So like when you see them like running past like regular puppets, they still look part of that world, and I thought that was just fascinating because it's like there's no people; these are just weird fucking big ass, almost animatronic like things that are there. It's like Wonder Chosen, but with a narrative in a way.
Yes. So we now see that this variety show, is now picked up to be a television special, which then will lead to its syndicated program. So they're in rehearsal. It's the beginning of the day, and then they're going to start the filming of the show at night in front of a live audience. So a lot of edge. It's a lot of performers, and then they're kind of going about their business in the theater. It kind of like seemed like they lived in the theater, not just like, oh, this is my dressing room. There were
Yeah,
like
it's
beds
like
and
this is
shit.
the boarding house too.
It's a boarding house.
Yeah,
too.
for actors.
And then this is exact for
The Stratford
yes.
Arms in New York City.
So that's where the plot diverts into little, what's the word? Stories that revolve around each other, but they're
Yeah, it's
separate.
like an
There are a lot of
ensemble
subplots.
piece in a way, but like
Yeah.
different. Yeah, and they all come together. It's like just behind the scenes of all the people back there and what they're doing.
Right. So it has a little bit of everything. There's a romantic story, which is cute. I like the romantic story.
Yeah, what's his name? He always says, is it Wobby?
Wobbit.
Oh, Wobbit. He's a little hedgehog and he's a little cute little boop bop.
And he falls in love with a
what is
dancing
she?
poodle.
It's a poodle. Okay, there were some of them where I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that is. But
some of them I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Some of them are like the made up creatures, like in the Muppets, where they're not like a specific animal.
Yeah, just like weird thing.
Weird fluff.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of Hollywood cliches all thrown together in the storylines, but played out as demented little puppet shits.
It's what inspired the movie Love Actually.
Oh!
So that's one plot. Then there's the reverse romance, which is a bad one. So it's between the star of the show, who is a hippo, a large hippo named fuck. I don't remember.
That's not her name. Fuck.
No, I know. Well, Blanche is the walrus. It'll come to me.
I don't remember names, but that's one of the characters who is a human in a suit, like a big hippopotamus thing, and she's running around crying, just like. And it's literally like a person running around like in this thing. It's so strange. And she is she married to the walrus, or they just have like a long romance?
They have a long romance. They're not married. I think that's kind of what she wanted. Yeah.
And the walrus runs the show, like runs the theater show producer. Yeah, and he's kind of what you'd expect a producer to be. Sleazy, gross, cheating, awful. Kind of what producers usually are. If you're not that, I'm sorry, but y'all haven't been getting the best kind of storyline.
It's like, I'm sure there are some lovely priests out there who don't touch children, but there's a very great man.
There's a good hefty sum of
them.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
We're breaking walls, pushing boundaries on this podcast, saying it, telling it like it is. The walrus is like, and he he's cheating on this woman that she thinks they're in love, and who's the hippopotamus, and he's fucking a cat. What is it?
A cat. Yeah.
Okay, a cat. Who's like, I guess, like one of the what was her deal? Was she a showgirl or a secretary? What was her? What kind of cliche role did she jump into? Okay.
I think she was one of the showgirls. So they were cats and poodles.
Yeah, so you see animal puppets fucking, but like...
You see a lot of that. There's this sort of side hustle. It's at some point it's revealed that he's like got ties to the mob. The walrus producer has ties to the mob. So he has an assistant who's a rat, and very typical in that fashion.
Yeah.
And so he's a porn director in the basement of the theater, taking the performers and like doing these fetish-esque videos. There's a fucking cow who's into BDSM, and actually kills another creature because they were startled or something.
And she sat on it?
But they sat on them. Yeah, they sat on them.
I don't remember what it was, though.
I remember the line is like, oh, is that what it is? I thought that was my hemorrhoid.
Oh, yeah, I know. Oh, my God.
So the fly is a paparazzi, is supposed to represent the paparazzi.
My favorite part of the movie, by the way, is the fly.
The fly is so fucking weird, and I love
disgusting, and I love how it's shot, and like I love how it doesn't look like a thing just like from a string. It like comes in, and like the camera gets weird with it as well, and it's just like, and it's just like a little journalist trying to like, be a journalist, like so annoying the shit out of everybody and eating shit in the toilet, which was disgusting.
Well, the fly is harassing the Kermit the Frog-esque character. So
yeah, it was a frog.
I mean the host. No, it was a bunny. It's a rabbit.
Oh, I thought you meant like literally like the one who does heroin and was in Vietnam. Never mind.
Oh no, we'll get to that in a minute. The rabbit is a sexual deviant. I think his name is Barry, but the rabbit is a sexual deviant, and I don't know how we got from having sex in like a weird setting to him discovering in the course of like an hour that he has the big one is AIDS, but they don't say it.
Oh, and that's when his face starts.
And then the lesions start happening, and then he
Okay.
deteriorates, and he's like getting progressively worse.
Well, now that I like look at that, I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what was happening. That was a storyline where I was like coming in and out because my brain was like, what? And I was just like, I don't really know what's happening. But yeah, it's
So
that makes sense.
So we don't actually know if it was like due to, I guess, what one would consider the surefire way to get AIDS, which is gay sex, unprotected. But we don't know.
Well,
so it's ambiguous.
At the very end, they do the they're like, oh, you just have you have this thing that rabbits go through, and then you're like, oh, and they're like, you just have to take this medicine, and you'll be fine in a day, and they're like, oh, so I was kind of flipping out for no reason. And it's just like,
right, well, yeah. So we find out that it wasn't AIDS.
Yeah.
It was just some sort of like stomach flu for rabbits.
And then
there's this lizard
and the gay fox.
Oh, but the gay fox is my favorite character.
The sodomy song. Yeah, I was like, oh, I think I've heard Matthew sing this.
I'm going to talk about the Vietnam thing, because that's where racism comes in.
Oh, it pops in a few times in the movie. Yeah, there are racist stereotypes that are latched on to these animal characters, and it's that was also off-putting, where I was just like, oh, Christ. I was like, I bet you I hope Peter Jackson is like, oh, you know what I regret doing? Racism. The movie's offensive across the board. It kind of hits every mark it needs to. And there's, the rape scene where she gets drugged. Yeah. There's a lot going on. And then it's like, it's fine, it's puppets. But then, no.
So there's a Vietnam vet who is addicted to drugs, it's just a smack, and they show a flashback where they have a very racist-looking puppet.
That was as off-putting, or more so than even like the gross out things that they did, because even though the puppets and shit looked pretty stupid sometimes, whenever they had to do something really fucking gross, that kind of hit it where I was like, okay, now it kind of got like a little too real in a way, where it was like, especially with the fly eating the shit, and it just looked like full-blown like beef stew and a pile of shit, and I was just like, dog. Yeah, I was like, holy shit, that'll forever be there. And just the fly in general was just like gross, and like the textures and stuff. Some of them had like interesting textures, and that was a lot to handle at times.
That's what Peter Jackson does well, though, in his films that are bizarre, and
the makeup.
He's able to take the makeup, the splatter gore in Dead Alive. The special effects, and I would say that, like, I don't know this, but if I was in the room, I would definitely go and say, you know what, like, going through directors, if I then watched Peter Jackson's films and said, oh, I need you to direct Lord of the Rings, this is weird, but it qualifies him because it's just so... with the special effects. Well, I don't know if he started it, but he's definitely part in the universe of the founding of the Weta Shop, which is the leading prop shop in
New
the
Zealand?
Entire industry.
Oh,
no, in the entire industry.
Oh, the world. Oh, that's amazing.
The world. Yeah, Star Wars uses it.
Yeah, it's cool to see how the effects progress in his movies too, and the special effects, and you can see like Heavenly Creatures being in that middle ground of like being taken serious as like a serious filmmaker, and like kind of his like wacky stuff from the past, and that kind of I felt like was like a point where it kind of started launching off into where he got bigger budgets, and you could see his budget getting bigger as it goes along.
Now we have the gay director, who is a fox, and very stereotypical as well, so offensive in some respects.
Yes,
but I guess we'll just get to the end of the story, the beginning of the end. So everything is going wrong. Nobody is on the same page. They're about to film.
A lot of them start
And
just dying too, just in general
a
in the
lot of them
storyline.
start dying. The walrus saw as a teenager and kind of was like having an inappropriate relationship and then made her the star. And this is some years later.
Yeah, we see the flashback of them meeting and their romance blooming, and now they're at the like, everything's terrible and our life sucks.
So she finally is dumped by him and aggressively, and nobody wants her in the show. And everybody's like snickering and telling her to go kill herself. So she attempts suicide. Doesn't work because she's a hippo and she tried to hang herself.
And she falls through the floor.
And she falls to the floor. So now with a failed suicide on her hands, she breaks and snaps.
Yeah,
and
well,
she finds
she was like also like at the she was like drinking, and she tried to do that, and she ended up in that room, and like his room, the walrus's like office, and then the pussycat shows up and is like, oh well, no one will miss you basically, and she's like about to shoot herself basically, and then she's like, oh, you have the safety on, have fun, and like so then she's like, rah! And explodes and kills the cat. As
and
the
now
first
she
victim.
goes, yes, first
Just
of many. Now
rampage.
She goes on a rampage. She
Yes.
goes on a rampage
in the middle of the
theater.
live show that they're doing, like just like
right,
that behind
it's already
stage.
started.
Yeah,
Right. They've already started the live taping. It's a combination of seeing like fluff pop out and blood. Fluff
Yeah.
and fluff. So
Yeah,
that was
it's all
kind
kinds
of
of
like
it.
now half the by the middle of the show, now half the cast is dead. So now they don't have an act. And now it's her turn. It's because they're trying to get to the thing and they get to her solo number.
Yeah. Never enough.
Basically, the gay director has been threatening the entire movie to be like, I'm going to put in my number, I'm going to put in my number, I'm going to put it in. It's beautiful, it's groundbreaking, it's smashing. And it ends up being a song about sodomy. So while they're filming a live production of this children's family variety show, this fox gets up on stage, has the entire number rehearsed with many different fucking versions of penises, of phallus items, and butts, and he just keeps singing about sodomy. Meanwhile, you don't see the entire sequence. While he's singing, the hippo is killing everybody.
Yeah, like behind stage, everyone's just being gunned down. And how does the song go again? It's
sodomy, sodomy.
Yeah,
but don't worry, there are happy endings in this. A lot of the cast is killed now. The sodomy song's over. She now finds her way to the stage with the machine gun, and there's this moment where Heidi. So Heidi then loses the gun at some point, and the rat and the walrus are still alive.
Oh yeah.
And Wobbert, the hedgehog, knocks the rat out or knocks somebody out so that she can get the gun.
Oh yeah, he like, I'm coming, and he like swings through, knocks over the rat, and then as she was about to be murdered, the walrus was like trying to be like, I still love you, and then he, you know, once the rat has the gun, he's like, oh yeah, fucking kill her, she can die, blah blah. So it's like, and then little hedgehog McGee comes, and then she gets the what's his name, Harry
Wobbert.
Okay,
Wobbert.
Well that doesn't make sense. Wobbert no, I don't know. Okay, so yeah, and then he knocks the gun out of the hand, and then, you know, I was about to say Helga, Heidi picks up the gun and kills the rat immediately, and then right into the walrus's face and blows his brains out. Which, can I just tell you, there's a scene in the beginning that it reminded me of Alice in Wonderland, where the walrus eats the little the little clams or whatever in Alice in Wonderland. I was traumatized by that as a kid, and I just thought that was devastating and fucking mean. I was like, you just killed these poor little babies, you sick piece of shit. So then when I got reminded with this movie, the walrus, and there's this little goldfish that's just like, I want to be in the show, and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, oh yeah, let me, here, look in my mouth, and then eats the goldfish that's just trying to make $1 with her performance. It was so sad. And he throws her up later, and she's like, did I get it? I'm like, no.
But I was going to talk about the stage manager worm. the only other pure character in the movie.
Yes, which I loved because it reminded me of the little caterpillar or worm from Labyrinth, just like the face, and I was just like, which that's my like favorite thing from from Labyrinth, but that just kind of reminded me of that.
So that the only other pure character besides the lovebirds is this stage manager who's very friendly, and he actually helps. He's part of the love subplot. Somehow managed to not get killed, and he tips the police off about the rampage murder spree. And this is a sadly beautiful scene to me in the movie.
Yeah,
the moment is so the moment is he says, I called the police. She kind of knows that was the right thing to do. She's come back to her senses a little bit.
Okay.
It was very Sunset Boulevard that she was lost in the moment.
Yeah.
And she asks to perform her number one last time. Mm-hmm. And he kind of like says, okay, Miss Heidi, all right. I mean, it was the character's big moment.
Yeah.
Post killing spree. And then it ends with the sirens coming, and now we get this sort of like little montage of what happened to all the people. So the worm retires to the country and gets knighted. The two lovebirds marry. The chicken elephant and the elephant father are bonding in a relationship. The director, who survived, comes out with a tell-all novel. It says, "Meet the something, my survival of the Feebles massacre."
Yeah.
And then it says that he's negotiating film rights. So like it's that meta joke of, oh, you're seeing the film.
Yeah, this is it.
This is the film. So it's really from his perspective. Yeah. And then it ends with showing Heidi, who has changed her identity.
And works at the supermarket.
And works at the supermarket. So, that's what happened. Can I say this? This came out in 1989. You know what happened the next year? Jim Henson died.
He saw the movie.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying
I know
that there was a coincidence.
But Peter Jackson has blood on his hands. It's interesting because when I started, I was actually supposed to be watching it with my brother, and I was like, I don't think he's gonna like this. And I told him, because I was like, I know it's all like puppets and stuff, but I also thought there'd be like people too, and I wasn't really prepared for what was gonna happen. I was just like, it's Peter Jackson, it's gonna be fucking weird, especially since it's closer to like when he did Bad Taste and Dead Alive. So I was like, it's gonna be fucking odd. And Brett was like, oh no, okay, cool. So we like smoked and stuff, and we were like, all right, this will be fun. And then Brett was like, is this like how it is? Is it just puppets and shit? And I was like, I think so. I think it is. I was like, if you don't have to watch. He's like, no, hold on, we'll watch it. And then like a few minutes later, he's like, I can't do this. And I was like, I understand. I was like, I'll go sit over there. And I like got my laptop and I plugged in my headphones and just started watching. And I was the whole time just like, what the fuck? I was like, God damn it, Matthew. But it was interesting because I could not. See, I've never been a fan of like Muppets. I've never been like that kind of puppet person. It's never been something I found interesting. The only thing of the Muppets I ever liked was Muppet Babies, because it was a cartoon. I enjoyed like the wackiness and kind of roller coaster camera work that he did, where it felt like everything was serious, even though it was like puppets, and it was like in your face, and was like lots of close-ups and shaky movements and like POV shots of just like running and stuff like that. And I just thought it was I thought that was interesting, and all the gore and special effects. So that stuff, I was like, this is so strange. I was like, part of me fucking hates this, and then the other part of me is also equally interested, because I think it's amazing that they pulled this off, especially with such like a low budget. And with such a low budget, they didn't need like actors. They kind of just did that. And like, well, I mean, of course you had to pay the people and stuff, but it was like a very just an interesting way, I think, to save money. Like visually it was a lot, so I was definitely entertained in that way. But It was difficult to get through, but
Yeah,
but
no, it's not easy.
But I am so glad I finally saw it though, because it was like a blind spot in his like filmography that I just hadn't seen it, because I think I was also scared of like the puppet thing, where that's never been my thing, even though I enjoyed Avenue Q when I saw it like in high school and stuff like that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, is it a movie I like? I don't know what the ritualistic why watch it on my birthday. I don't.
Well,
but
you
I
just have a
tried.
connection to it, and you probably saw it on your birthday, and it made an impact, because it is definitely impactful. Whether that be in a positive or negative
shell
place.
shock.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that it has a cult following, and it has that for a reason. It is very specific. Yeah. It is a very specific humor, style, everything, and it is impressive for what they do. And it reminded me of kind of just like, it's like so bad it's good in a way, but this, I wouldn't say that personally, but I respect it. The thing I like about it is that especially his earlier films feel like kind of like just buddies coming together to make a movie. Like, it's just like a friend made just movie. So you kind of see them having fun. You can see how like the humor is clearly of that group of people, and it just has this time. And it has this like folksy kind of feel to it, because it's so low budget, and because it does stuff that really wasn't being done on a larger scale, I guess, that I could possibly think of, where like there's these little Muppet creatures, but they're adult, dirty, gross, and filthy, awful, gross.
How much can we go? Like, how far can we go at these fucking puppets? And they go.
They do it all. They do a lot. Yeah, there were more parts that actually made me laugh. Maybe if there was a more cleverness in the script than in like the special effects and cartoonery buffoonery, then maybe
the buffoonery goonery tomfoolery.
Yes, exactly. If they leaned more into the clever, like I guess, ideas and stuff, if it was more clever, it would be great. But it's very lowbrow humor with and they did some really interesting stuff with a very low budget. People's
perception is, if it's funny or clever, we kind of almost sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
As far as problems. And now we live in a time that we can like recognize that, hey, maybe this is not okay.
Has a very specific audience. I'm very glad I finally got to see it. So I thank you for that so much. Just because I guess I needed a reason to sit down and watch it, because I've always been a like no Muppet kind of thing. But I'm glad I did, because I got to see some really interesting filmmaking choices. Yeah, and it was great, and I'm really glad you got to see Heavenly Creatures too, and it's cool to do a thing to...
Thank you for having me. I love this. It's great. I want to do this again.
Okay, I'll let you.
I have like 8,000 films.
Great, same.
No, I don't. I also needed an excuse to sit down and watch Heavenly Creatures.
This is why I did this podcast in the first place, to force my friends to watch the movies I want them to watch.
It's to get people to watch some films. Let's talk about films. Let's talk about weird films. Let's talk about films that aren't like The Avengers. As much as I would love, you know me, bitch, I would love to talk about that.
Yeah.
But let's broaden our minds. Let's open the palette.
And that's why I want to hear from other people too, and just see what they're absolutely passionate about, especially if it's like a hidden gem that, is, you don't really have many people to talk about it with. And I love that thing where you can just be like, oh, you've seen this? And, oh, let's talk about it. And which is great, because I don't have that a lot. And that's why, because I'm always like watching, like, I just really love obscure different things. So I try to go as far into it and find all kinds of stuff. And then when I want to talk about it, no one's around to do it. So that's why I've like gone online and talked to people. And I was like, but I want to have these like conversations with also my friends that I, hang out with regularly and know regularly. And so I've gotten people like from all different parts around the world just to like come together. And I'm excited to do that. So, and I'm glad I got you to come on here too, because I know you have a lot to say and a lot to offer. So it's really fun. And I love talking to you.
I have a lot to say. So I have Twitter. Twitter is Matthew J, J-A-Y, 1911. And my Instagram is Matthew J, J-A-Y, 19, no 11. I also have a drag account, more than welcome to follow.
Amanda Burden.
Amanda Burden in drag.
Yes.
She's, a queen.
Thank you, Matthew.